These are just our current US partners, and here are the international partners. And Coursera's partners include 30 of the 60 top universities worldwide, as well as the #1 or 2, or often both, universities in 14 different countries. So some of you might know my story, but the way Coursera started was that as a Stanford professor, I normally teach a 400 student Stanford class. About a year and a half ago, I put my class online and it reached an audience of 100,000 students. To put that number in context, for me as a professor to reach 100,000 students, I would otherwise have had to teach at Stanford for 250 years. And whereas online education has been around for a long time, as Scott mentioned, 17% of students taking online courses, the change that this is that the technology now exists for one student to teach 100,000 students, and that has implications, some of which I hope we'll go over on today's panel. Who are the students? It was students like Jenny, a 39-year-old single mother of 2, who had been wanting to return to college and for whom the convenience of a free Stanford class allowed her to take the first step. As well as internationally, students like Akash, who wrote me to say that coming from a small middle-class family in India, he would otherwise never have had access to a Stanford class. Since launching the movement about a year and a half ago, we've grown significantly, and today we have more than 20 entry-level courses on Coursera that span a broad range of disciplines. Recently, the Gates Foundation had an RFP to get entry-level GED and entry-level MOOCs created, and we're hosting 7 of those. And ACE, the American Council for Education, has also reviewed and recommended 5 of our courses for a college credit. And just to mention, we're also working with one community college so far, hopefully more in the future, with Mount St. Jacinto. Mount St. Jacinto is creating a course on Intro to Writing. And today, with 63 university partners, over 300 courses, and 3.4 million students, we are by far the largest MOOC or massive open online courses platform in the world. Coursera we actually reached our first 1 million students faster than did Facebook to reach their first 1 million users. I think this is not because we're anything special, though. Rather, I think it just speaks to a societal need, including right here in California, for an affordable, high-quality education. So why do so many students take our classes? I think it is that, first and foremost, they are real courses. A class begins on a certain day, and it runs for a fixed period of time, say 10 weeks in the case of a Stanford class. This is a plot of the web traffic in my class as it progresses, and those peaks, those regular heartbeats, are homework deadlines. Every time there's a homework due, predictably, the 24 hours before web traffic spikes, thus proving procrastination is a global phenomenon. And finally, if you complete the course and do the homework and meet a high grading bar, you can also receive a certificate that you can put in your resume and use to find a better job. Let me show you what the student experience looks like taking one of these classes. Like many others, we use video-based instruction. So this is a typical lecture video. It's just the instructor speaking. So point out English captioning, which is useful for non-native speakers, as well as crowdsourced foreign language captioning. But the class is much, but rather than posting online hour-long lectures, we encourage instructors to take concepts and break them down into 10-minute bite-sized pieces. This allows instructors to post also optional prereq and optional advanced material so that students can navigate through the content in their own order and at their own pace, thus moving us away from the one-size-fits-all model of education. But the class is much more than just lectures, and I think often where the learning really takes place is in the homeworks or the assessments. Most of our classes also have serious weekly homeworks that often take students hours to complete. This ranges from the ubiquitous multiple choice to hear a short answer, to math expression checking, to computer-graded computer programming exercises, to structured data grading exercises. So the assignment, like have a student build a financial model in a spreadsheet, or build a circuit model in a simulator and upload that to a website to be auto-graded, and the student gets instant feedback on all of their work done with them. One of the innovations out there in the system to enable us to assign more open-ended work. On the previous slide, I had talked only about auto-graded or computer-graded homeworks, but not everything can be auto-graded. If we want to offer a humanities class, right, have students, say, write a 300-word essay critiquing a piece of poetry. How do you auto-grade that? So what we did was we instead developed a system called peer grading that lets students grade each other's work. The way peer grading has previously been shown in small classes to give highly accurate grades. Here's a small study that shows that the student grade is highly correlated with the student's grade, with the teacher's grade. What we've done is we've implemented peer grading at scale in classes with 100,000 students. The way it works is as a student in one of these classes, you would be asked to first do the work, say write an essay. Then you'll be trained to grade other students' work. You'll be asked to demonstrate proficiency in grading. So show me that you can grade other students' work accurately on a few pieces of work that the instructor had already graded. And then finally, you'll be asked to grade, say, 5 other students' pieces of work, and in exchange you get feedback from 5 others about the quality of your own work. Here's a screenshot of a peer grading interface. In this example, the student was asked to hand draw a diagram and use their cell phone camera to take a picture of the hand-drawn diagram and upload that hand-drawn diagram to be graded by other students. So peer grading, together with the auto-grading technology, has, I think, been key to enable us to offer a broad range of courses that span the humanities, the social sciences, the basic sciences, engineering, business, law, finance, and other areas. The third, talked about the lectures, talked about homeworks. The third and final component of the student experience is the community. With 100,000 students taking a class, it turns out to be much easier to build a community than if there were only 100 students in the class. Having 100,000 students also means that if you have a question and you post it on a website, then no matter what time of day you are awake thinking about something, there will be someone in some time zone awake at the same time as you thinking about the same thing. They can discuss it with you. On a discussion forum, we have students post questions and have other students answer their questions because one professor can't answer 100,000 students' questions. And when we most recently measured it, if you post a question on our website, the median response time, that is how long you have to wait before someone else answers your question, was 22 minutes, which is a pretty decent response time. One of the great things about teaching a massive open online class is the data that you can get. In a typical education study, if you want to experiment with pedagogy, you might have an experiments group of 20 students and a control group of 20 students. In a MOOC, massive open online class, we can easily deliver an experiments group of 20,000 students and a control group of 20,000 students. And moreover, it's not just the sheer number of students, it's also the detail of data. We log every mouse click, every keystroke, every homework submission, correct or incorrect. We know which students procrastinated on watching the videos. And this is an unprecedented detail and magnitude of data, which we're using to open, I think, a new window into human learning. So let me share with you one quick example of things we've been able to do with this data. In one of our classes on Coursera, it's actually my class, a funny thing happened. I assigned a homework problem, and 2,000 students submitted exactly the same wrong answer. Never happened to me before. So that's the plot of all the student submissions. The big red cross on the upper left was the 2,000 nearly identical incorrect solutions. We looked at a small sample of the solutions and found that every one of them had taken 2 steps of a mathematical algorithm and reversed the order in which they did those 2 steps. What this allowed us to do was generate a custom error message, so when the next student came and submitted the same wrong answer, we could tell them, well, please consider the order in which you're doing these 2 steps. And this allowed them to much more quickly correct the misconception and move on. So if you think about it, if in a normal class, if a normal on-campus class, if 2 out of 100 students submit the same wrong answer, you probably won't even notice. But it's when 2,000 out of 100,000 students submit the same wrong answer, that's what gives you a very strong signal that there's something to be looked at here. And so I think it's actually ironic that in order to achieve personalization at the level of giving this custom error message to tell students what they need to look at, to achieve personalization, what was needed was to teach a class with 100,000 students because that's what gave us the data that made personalization possible. So, one last piece, I guess as we move MOOCs, courses online, over the last year, I've often been asked, if anyone can go online and take free Princeton classes now, why on earth would anyone still pay $200,000 for a Princeton degree? And I think that the answer is that the real value of a college education is not just the content. Content is increasingly free on the web anyway. To quote Plutarch, I think the mind is not a vessel that needs filling, but wood that needs igniting. And I think students come to our campuses not for the content, but for the professors and for the other students. And our role as instructors should not be to deliver content, it should be to ignite our students' minds. There have been many pedagogical studies, such as this, which show that there are more interactive modes of teaching that result in much better student attendance, engagement, learning. And this is not a 1 or 2% improvement. This is like a 30%, a huge improvement in student learning. And the way this works is with a form of pedagogy that's often called blended learning, or sometimes a flipped classroom. And today, in my Stanford class, where I use this mode of pedagogy, instead of walking, I guess those of you that are instructors might resonate with what I'm about to say, but for over a decade now, I have been walking to the same room at Stanford, and year after year, saying the same words to the same room, you know, like telling the same jokes. And after a decade, I really started to question if this was the best way for me to serve my students. Instead, with the flipped classroom, what we do in many of our partners at Stanford is instead send the students to watch the videos online. And what it does is it preserves the classroom time, those precious 3 hours a week that the registrar gives us for us to have much more in-depth conversations with students. So in my classroom, I usually look at the instructor dashboard the night before class to see what students have gotten right and gotten wrong on the quizzes. That's just a screenshot of an instructor dashboard. And this allows me to understand what the students are confused about, so I can then spend time in class doing just-in-time teaching, where I address student confusions. And then the rest of that time is often spent giving personalized feedback to students, doing small group problem solving, where I invite students to sit next to their best friends and work on problems together, and I go and work, mentor the students one-on-one. With content moving to the web, what I'm seeing is that this is a return to teaching, where I think our role as instructors is less to broadcast content, but is to actually teach students. And I think teachers provide an incredible service to students this way. At Coursera, we've been thinking extensively about ways to engage with community colleges and to work with you to help address some of the budgetary pressures that we're facing from the states, and for us to come up with innovative solutions to help serve our teachers and our students better, and frankly, to propose solutions before the state legislates things on us. And so one of the models that we're working on that we'd love to explore or develop further or modify with you is what we call the Coursera for Schools program, in which we've been piloting out with a number of community colleges, a program where they or others create content and we stream the content to your community colleges. And what this does is, with our auto-grading technology and online video content, what this does is it frees up your instructor's time to spend much more time actually teaching students. Under some of our cost modeling, we believe it is possible to give your teachers substantial raises while serving students better and raising the quality of on-campus education. But we're still in the early phases of figuring out what is the model for this, and we'd love to collaborate with you on this. And then something I don't often say, but just just share with you one last thought, because all of us in this room are educators. But I think that with MOOCs, I think we are seeing a transformation in education enabled by technology, and there will be a transformation whether we like it or not. Whether Coursera plays a role or not, frankly, I think the cat is out of the bag. But I guess it was starting about a year ago. This is to show you some of my personal thoughts. It was about starting about a year and a half ago, that my co-founder, Daphne Collier, and I started running around speaking of this idea that education should not be just for the elite. Education should not be just for the privileged, but education should be a fundamental human right. And in that, I think our values are incredibly well aligned, I think, with that of community colleges, where we want to serve the Indians, the working adults that don't yet have a degree. And I guess, in terms of making education a human right, I think that we as a society advance when we find the resources, but also the moral courage to decide that certain things should be a human right and given to everyone. I think this is true for the right to vote. I think this is true for the right to free speech. And I think this will be true for the right to a great education. And so, because all of you are leaders and educators, I think with MOOCs, we actually already have the resources to make this happen. And if we are to realize the vision of giving everyone in California, then it will have to be the leaders in education, that is, all of you in this room, that will have to lead the way. Thank you.